Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just put a little bit more light on myself. There we go. Might actually be able to see. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stream. I hope everybody is well, and I hope you have had a good couple of past weekends. Last weekend, blimey, I'm either exploding on the screen or or disappearing into the background. Settings are all over the place. No idea why. I think we're just at the mercy of the streaming gods at the moment. It is pissing it down outside. It is a shitty weekend in terms of the weather. Actually, I say shitty. We need the rain, but yeah, it's not an evening to be out, is it? So we have instead got a double bill of what we got? We've got blood of Bayer. We have a Bay of Blood, and we have Blood Feast. So I've called this the blood stream, and you know what? I'm probably going to call every other stream after this now the blood stream. That is the name of this stream from now on, because why not? We've got quite a few people in. It's nice to see a few faces. We've got Kerry. Kerry is always great to see Kerry in nice and early. Obviously got no extra responsibilities today, which is quite nice. It's good to see you, Kerry. We've got Simon, Adam. My brother is lurking apparently somewhere, so we'll say hi to my brother. Shame him for not joining in. Yeah. Chat is going to be doing this kind of craziness, and I have no idea why. I haven't got a clue as to why. It's really quite annoying, but there you go. I'm going to have a look and see what's going on. Dear, oh dear. May the healing hands of Jesus Christ have mercy on our unclean souls once again. I'm a little with Simon on that one. I'm probably fucked on that front. If I happen to be wrong. Hey, Gary, King of the Lurkers. Yes, he is. He is the King of the Lurkers. But he has deigned us with his presence. I can feel it through the ether. But yes, I spent last weekend up with my brother, seeing the family. It was very nice. Yeah. Although organising a train was an absolute bitch of a job, but there you go. I've been sort of getting a little bit more of a little bit more drive to do some writing and stuff. Now that I've slowed down, because now I'm working 3-day weeks, which is nice. I'm just doing that that's how I take my summer holidays. So I get a weekend where it's nice weather and the telescope goes out. Looks like my next opportunity is going to be Sunday though, because this is a very wet weekend. All of a sudden, we've got that spring weather, and I'm not quite sure what's going on. The bloodbath, yes. I just kind of like the idea. It's the stream, and now this is the blood stream. I don't have a bath, so we can't have a blood bath. We can't have me kind of like in bloody suddy water. Do my stream like some sort of weird OnlyFans kind of thing. That would be bad, wouldn't it? But yeah, it's good to see Good to see Adam. Adam's missed the last few and has been like, sorry. It's like, no, don't have to be sorry. We've all got things to do. It's all a bit... we try to keep things casual around here, don't we? I mean, this is kind of like... this is supposed to be fun time. This is... I'm going to just change that colour a bit. It's a little yellow, but there we go. I'll stop pissing around with the lighting at some point soon. It's always a bit weird this time of year because there's a little bit more daylight sort of gets in here and that kind of stuff. And daylight is not my friend. I'm a theatre guy. I'm used to running around in the dark, aren't I? Might get banned from YouTube if you did. They couldn't ban me for that. Who would ban me for that? I mean, look, who doesn't want to see that? Oh dear. Hello, John. Let the revels and jigs begin, rejoice. Yes. Sounds almost medieval. Oh dear. Anyway, Links are in the description below. We won't wait too long before we get going on that. So get yourselves all queued up. We are going to be starting with A Bay of Blood. That is an hour and 24 minutes, so 84 minutes. So, yeah. I know my brother's only stopping for the first one, apparently. So, yeah. I'm very, very tempted at the moment. In fact, I've just ordered a couple of discs to basically bump up the collection. Now I've got the original 1972 one, but I've got Invasion and that one. Trying to get hold of the Abel Ferrara one is a lot harder though. It's either really expensive or kind of entirely in Spanish, apparently at the moment, which is a little bit unfortunate. But I want to do something like I did with the Blob, like a retrospective of the various versions, because I think that might be quite interesting. I think that might be quite an interesting thing to do. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing that. Surprised that Abel Ferrara still gets movies made so regularly. I don't know. I'm not so much surprised. I mean, he's a good director and all. It just has a certain kind of feel, but it's not unusual for a director. I don't know, but getting hold of that version is really difficult. His version is it's kind of very, it's kind of out of the way. No superheroes. He doesn't do franchise movies or commercial films, so he does the occasional kind of commercialist sort of film, doesn't he? I mean, his version of Invasion, Body Snatchers, is a relatively commercial film by his standards. But when I was up at my brother's, I did actually manage to, because I'd picked these up like in previous visit, but I got the Blues of the Shining and the Elephant Man, which is great. So those were upgraded, which is quite nice. And I did. You're gonna laugh at me for this now, especially with the superheroes kind of comment. I picked this up as a bit of a hate watch. Now, don't judge me too harshly, because I wanted to give it a second chance when I was a little bit less kind of pissed at it, and didn't spend any money that would go towards Disney, and barely spent any money at all. But I got this to hate watch with my brother because he'd not seen it, and it was funny. It was funny seeing his reaction to it. It was like 185. I mean, 185 second hand, so Disney weren't getting any cash from it. But yeah, it wasn't quite as traumatic as the first time I watched it. Maybe I'm getting a little bit more kind of hardened to my reaction to the film, but it's still a fucking mess of a film. There's no saving that movie. I don't think it's ever going to get a proper revisit in terms of reappreciation. Yes. Why do you morally object to Disney? I object to them because they are pretty bad for cinema in general. I mean this genuinely. They have bought up so much of the music, for the film industry, probably some of the music industry as well, but the film industry, they bought up so much of it, and are basically homogenizing a lot of stuff, and they're cutting stuff out, and they're fucking around with the history of film. I don't think they are over a long period have proven themselves to not be good custodians of the art, and I think that's something that should be always remembered and kept in mind, is that they don't see the properties that they own as being important outside of their market value, and their market value is whatever they decide it is. And I think it's a terrible approach. They are the epitome of the worst of capitalism when it comes to movie matters. You mean the best Star Wars? You know, the only Star Wars film that I don't own is The Last Jedi, and actually I think The Last Jedi is actually a better film than that. Despite, it's not very good as a Star Wars film, but if you took it kind of in and of itself, it's not that bad. As long as you kind of have to jettison all the baggage of kind of like how much you have riding on certain nostalgic characters and that kind of stuff. But yeah. I thought it was funny. It's like I say, it's £1.85. And it's second hand, so Disney gets no money. I would go so far as to say as I would not be upset in the slightest if Disney went away permanently. Burn it down. Burn it all down. Not literally. That is not a terroristic threat. It's a figurative thing. Agreed. If you want to buy Disney, what I do is buy it second hand, so Disney gets no money. Yeah. They're terrible, terrible, terrible company. And it's a shame because they have so much power to actually do amazing things. And in their past, they have done amazing things, but they have also always historically been terrible when it comes to copyright. They have extended the copyright kind of periods beyond any kind of reason, and are stifling creation on even on old folk stories wherever they can. So it's pretty bad. Okay. Best Star Wars film is Ewoks, Caravan of Courage. My God. Yes. I only vaguely remember that. I do remember watching it sort of on VHS many moons ago, and not being terribly impressed. Oh dear. Anyway, start giving it a thumbs up when you got yourself all hooked up with the link, which is in the description for A Bay of Blood, and we will get cracking because we've got quite a way to go. So 2 movies. We're starting with Bay of Blood, and we'll go on to Herschel Gordon Lewis's 1963 horror. Say horror, really. It's a splatter classic, isn't it? Blood Feast. I do have beer. I did something very rare today. I actually sort of ordered a delivery of food from Sainsbury's. It's been so manky out there. It's just not very nice. Yeah. So I got some beer, and thankfully they've managed to chill in time. It's nice and cold, so I'm looking forward to this. Oh yeah. And I have another bottle of 19 Crimes over there, just in case I manage to. Well, we're not watching Star Wars tonight. I don't think I'm going to get through 5 bottles of beer. Fantastic. We have a few people sort of ready to go. Disney are evil. They're just a money-making racket trying to fleece people out of the hard-earned cash. Yes, they are. They're pretty horrible. You do wonder whether the executives actually kind of like understand how people feel about them. But if they do, they clearly don't give much of a shit. They work so hard on their public image. They curate their films and edit their films and all that kind of stuff to try to push forward this family-friendly kind of facade. It when they do a lot of the stuff, they really do kind of tip their hand as to what they think of the business that they're in is. But there you go. I have tea. I live wild and dangerous. Yes. Well, hopefully it's a good tea. But it is whatever is your poison. 19 Crimes is a wise choice. It's not bad actually. I've got the what is it? Oak barrel conditioned, whatever. It's rum barrel conditioned or something like that. One, and one of the more regular ones. It's nice. It's a nice red wine. Anywho, so get yourselves ready, folks, and we'll start on the count of 5 and go on go. So this is A Bay of Blood in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I love this soundtrack. And A Bay of Blood is actually one of those films that I think is it's right up there in the video nasties list. Though it's not one of the ones that everybody sort of immediately goes for. It's not the first on people's lists by any means. But not only is it, Mario Bava and at some of his best, doing some of his best work, really. Well, arguably there are other titles which people would say are more objectively best. This is a fun film, in my opinion, especially for a Giallo. And Giallo, I'm very willing to say that a lot of Giallo can come across as being boring to a lot of viewers. They tend to be quite slow, and then just sort of accentuate with these spikes of violence. So they take a bit of time. They're not really got the kind of pacing that... just turn my headphones down a bit. Not really got the kind of pacing that a lot of modern audiences would really want. But I love the kind of sleazy sort of atmosphere that surrounds these films. There's always something. There's just this kind of fragile facade of normality, and it's constantly being burst through with the blade of a knife. It's kind of fun to me. I think what gets me about the Disney is that they've made the first film I saw in the cinema for my birthday, The Jungle Book, in 1987. I wanted to see The Running Man. It is awesome intro music. Now there is I said in the review that I did of this about this being having some undertones of environmentalism, and there is a bit of that in this. One of the titles I think was Environment of Crime, but there's aspects of this thing where crime is almost like a force of nature in it. This opening is actually one of the things which is it's quite shocking, especially for the time. This is 1971, this film, and it going by what Giallo normally is, where you get a murder and you don't get to see who it is. There are twists and turns in most Giallo, but this one really kind of like... It's like the twists and turns are being kind of personified by a plate of spaghetti. It's so twisty-turny. It ties itself up in knots to some degree, but still manages to keep running. Giallo in Venice is a great one. Okay. Several of the scenes were recreated in Friday the 13th films. Yes, there were. It is a hugely influential film for a film that isn't really that well known by... anyone outside of the kind of circles that we hold. Even fans of video nasties don't tend to put this in a top 10, really, from what I've seen, because it's not one of the showier ones. It's not Cannibal Holocaust. It's not I Spit on Your Grave. It's not even Don't Go in the House, or Nightmare in a Damaged Brain. It was never that sort of spectacularly showy on the list, although it did have a great VHS cover, which I would love the original of. Barbara did a great job with what he had on his plate to use. And yes, John says, first film I saw in cinema was Return to Oz. I think my mother thought it would be light and colourful as the original. You know what? It is a funny thing, isn't it? The films that traumatised you as a kid, often the films that you kind of hold dear, or at least have some very powerful memories of. One of which for me would have been E.T. Do you remember watching that when that came out at the cinema? That and Watership Down. Watership Down is the first film I remember that just made me bawl. It's such a brutal scene. This is. It's like, it's, oh wow, okay. um, This is an unusual Giallo, to say the least. Yeah, it kind of crosses the boundaries a little bit. Obviously, it is considered to be one of the fathers, or the father of the kind of modern slasher, i.e., the kind of Friday the 13th and stuff like that. This is this scene. It's like suddenly you got a killer. He's got all the black gloves on. He got all the tropes of the genre going on, and then immediately you see his face. It's like, that's not supposed to happen. So immediately they're subverting your expectations within this film. So it's kind of fun because it is doing something which is immediately quite different to most Giallo, where you'd have the one killer. And now I was sort of talking about this the other week about this kind of this kind of film. Yeah, I lost my track. Excuse me. Because I've just seen somebody talking about Ghost Watchers. Yes, Ghost Watchers is amazing. I didn't find that traumatic, but I did find it very fun. It really draws you in, that does. Yeah. Apologies, I completely lost my track then. There you go. One of my dreams would be to direct a watership downplay dogs style film someday. Do it. As I say in Rocky Horror, don't dream it, do it. Ghostwatch was a fascinating program. I did have the writer for that get in contact with me one time when I did the review of it. Suddenly the killer gets killed. It's like, yeah. Yes, that was it. I was talking about kind of like, you get these characters sort of, just about every character in this film is pretty hateable. We were talking about the Lamberto Bava movie that we watched just recently. How that film has a lot of characters that are very, everyone's a bastard in it. Everyone is a complete bastard in that film. And in this one, it's very much the same. Nobody's trustworthy. Everybody's capable of being the murderer. So the finger's pointed in all sorts of directions. It's very, very effective. And Lamberto Bava tried to, kind of emulate that for quite a long time, I think, with his films. What his dad did in films like this. You wish, Byron says, wish I'd seen it on TV. Yes, it was quite an experience to watch on TV. And for the first time, when it was first aired. I don't think they've ever repeated it. So... yeah, I don't think they've ever repeated it. But watching it that first time on the TV, and I was pretty kind of like, savvy to what was going on. I was like, it's clearly fake, but they're going to pull some bullshit and all that kind of stuff. But even then, it still drew me in. 101 Films did a great blue release of Ghostwatch recently. Worth checking out if you're a fan. Yeah, I've got the version that has another similar kind of program on it. It's up there somewhere. I shan't pause and go find it, but yeah, I've got to watch that. what sold Ghostwatch to me as a kid was having Craig Charles in it. I was a huge Red Dwarf fan at the time. And that's the thing. A lot of people didn't, because it had like Sarah Green and all the others, as Parkinson as well. All these very familiar, very friendly faces. And the sort of people that you go, oh, you wouldn't lie to me, would you? In the back of your head, that's kind of how it was. They're very trusted presenters. And then this shenanigans kind of happened. You wouldn't have been alone with that, John. There's a lot of people had troubles with the movie. Ow, god damn it! It's banged my knee. That's all right. Apologies if that came through the mic. Yeah, it did go over the top. But the thing is, I think, Simon, that what I found with it, although I still didn't believe it at the end, it was very insidious in the way it sort of drew you in, because it did it all very, very sort of slowly. It's one of our, shall we say, one of our more interesting characters. It's kind of fun how these characters are sort of set up. This film does take its time. It's not a long film by any means. It's only like about 84 minutes or whatever it is. But it does take its time to sort of build up characters as it goes along. And there's various things going on, because like I said, it's constantly sort of shifting the focus on who may be responsible. First time you watch this, in particular, it's incredibly effective for that. I love the sort of semiotics of this thing. They mention it in the Dawn of the Dead commentary track with the cast one, that you don't get that kind of binocular vision. It's not how you see it. It's such a cat and mouse thing with this. It's kind of fun. They're just constantly casting aspersions on various characters. So why are these people doing this? Why are they behaving so weirdly? I knew Ghostwatch was a drama, but it played it so straight. I actually got sucked in. I thought I'd misread the TV guide, but it was so silly. But it was like, nah, yeah, that was probably the correct response. But yeah, it does. It kind of drags people in, and then hopefully, and it worked for a lot of people. By the time it started getting really crazy, people were drawn in far enough that they could, they jumped that suspension of disbelief obstacle. I only saw Ghostwatch for the first time a few years ago. Immediately knew it was fake, as recognised the actress playing the mum from an episode of Cracker. Yes. Yeah, there was a lot of unknown people in it at the time, plus plenty of people that you really did know. But the people that you didn't really know was what was important. Just an interesting piece of casting in that sort of respect for a drama. So they really did want to draw people in. Whether or not they wanted to sort of raise the stakes quite as high as it was and cause as much trouble as they did is arguable. Though their writers would they constantly argue that have maintained that wasn't the goal, that it was kind of unintentional. I'm not so sure. I think they just managed to be a lot more effective than they thought they were going to be. Yeah, I love the music in. I mean, a lot of Giallo has really cool kind of music. You know, sort of late '60s, early '70s kind of almost. Um, it's very continental sounding music in these films for obvious reasons. It's So, I mean, it's quite a neat twist that so far, isn't it? You've got a murder that's been made into a suicide, another murder that the murderer has been murdered as well, and he has disappeared. So there's already these layers upon layers of conspiracy going on. That's a good part that's part of a good giallo um, is that feeling of conspiracy going on and wondering who's the bad person. And here we got the Scooby Gang. I think that's why Blair Witch Project worked well, also having great unknown actors that and utilising the internet in its early days. The marketing on that was phenomenal. Very basic when you look at it. You know, when you really kind of let the cold light of day look at it, it's very basic. It's nothing particularly amazing about what they did, but the way they did it, the method that they delivered it, and the time that they did it in, all kind of culminated in people believing it was real. And yeah, a lot of people get very down on Blair Witch Project. My brother's not a fan of it. I think it's a pretty interesting film. Partly because it was fairly innovative in how it did stuff. They worked with what they had in the best way that they could, and made a very effective film. Yeah, I think it was quite a masterpiece in filmmaking, really. You know, of low budget filmmaking. Unfortunately, it was very, very quickly just sort of everybody went, "Oh crap, camera work! That's how you make a scary movie." And it wasn't really the point. The extra fodder has arrived, Laris. Just as Blair Witch is one of those films, I love the lore it sets up. The film itself, not so much. Yeah, it's perfectly legitimate thing to feel. I'll have to watch it again at some point. I do remember watching it at the cinema. There was a lot of complaints about gratuitous panty shot. There was a lot of complaints about it making people travel sick and stuff like that, which was quite amusing. Then we'd go to watch the ending was blatantly ripping off scenes from The Exorcist, Amityville Horror, Poltergeist, how anyone took. Yeah, but you got to remember a lot of people didn't watch those films. You know, there's a lot of people don't watch those films. So what they saw was completely fresh to them. The likes of you and I are a lot more savvy to those films because that's the stuff we were into. It's very nice, actually. Sweary, by the way. Beer from Norfolk. Love the film. Mindful it cost just 30,000 to make and a lot of noises at night, which was the director and his mates running around the woods in their long johns. Apparently, yes. Yeah, and apparently, you know, the way they filmed it, a lot of the actors, you could argue it was, you know, in some ways pretty abusive, but they were basically genuinely trying to scare the actors. Blaketon, I thought that was Fergie. Okay. It was a sequel to Blair Witch Project, released in 2016, in which more people go into it trying to find out what happened to the original filmmakers. Basically, the same things happened to them. I know there was what's it, the Blair Witch Project book of something or other, wasn't there as well? Which is, yeah, for bio. I've not seen it myself. Apparently there was some interesting aspects to the film, but it wasn't what people were kind of expecting. I think the worst thing about Blair Witch Project for me was really Paranormal Activity and that slew of films that were being done half-heartedly in the same vein. Paranormal Activity for me was like that was just the epitome of dreck. How it was so popular, I've got no idea. Phantasm is an example of a non-Giallo film with a Giallo score. You know what? I can't remember the score to it off the top of my head. I'm going to have to watch Phantasm again. It's been such a long time. Fun fact, Heather Donahue from Blair Witch retired from acting and became a cannabis farmer. Really? Okay. Well, good for her. Thing is, there was a Blair Witch 2 in which it was established the first was a film, so not sure how the new film fitted in with that. Half-assed sequel plots, not exactly a new thing, are they? I think with Blair Witch, part of the reason it worked is because everyone was committed to the idea. There's no compromise with that film. It's just they had a very straightforward, very simple idea, and they ran with it. So you got this couple here, and it's like there's already a kind of love-hate relationship between them. You're never quite sure where these characters are coming from, and that's what's interesting. And there's always this aspect of life and death in their lives. Like him, he kills the insects and stuff like that. You got the squid farmer who does his thing as well. When we kept Mary, Indiana, Hocus Pocus also quit acting to become Canada's farmers. Okay. Worse livings to be made. I could go joint right now. That'd be a great way to get the stream absolutely kind of ripped off, wouldn't it? Just sit here. You're a bear. See, this section of the film really with these with the group of young people, and they've sort of turned up because of the stories of the idea that there's a murder going on, that kind of stuff. It's probably one of the weaker. It's entertaining, but it's probably one of the weaker parts of the film. because it is sort of like the kill fodder sort of section. They have very little really to do with much of what's going on. Unless, Barbara's kind of like going, well, these are the Gawkers, therefore they've got to also be dealt with. I've never understood, with the UK and Ireland in general, is the attitude towards pot and stuff like that. It's not something I would be kind of super crazy about, but yeah, there's more harmful things going around in the world. And give people a little chance to chill out and don't tax the hell out of it for once. So I love the fashion of the late 60s, early 70s. Yes. Some of it was alright, some of it was gaudy as fuck. Well, bear in mind my age, I did live the dream somewhat. I have to say, I do like the figures of the women in the 60s and 70s. Much more natural kind of figure. 70s bush. Sounding like Josh Hadley. Just looked on Heather Donahue's Wikipedia. It seems she even had a large legal dispute over her likeness rights in the 2016 version. Not surprising. It's very common. With Alien 3, Michael Biehn, he charged the fuck out of him just for that few seconds of that really kind of crappy computer image of his face. He was so pissed that he hadn't got invited back that he basically ended up getting paid just about as much as if he had. No, not one of the more effective jumps, is it? Although, they really tried to build him up as being this kind of scary person, but yeah. Just ordered a few films actually. I've just ordered, on the strength of what we're watching later on, I've ordered the Blood Trilogy Blu-ray because I haven't seen the other two films. Long story short, she was sick of the Blair Witch and would not let them use her name. That's why her brother only says, I'm looking for my sister. Never mentions her name. Yeah, I imagine she. The thing is, with something like that film, it was so infamous and all that kind of stuff, and so memed as well. Especially her iconic moment where she's absolutely just, as an actress, letting it kind of all hang out. It's snot and tears and. People just chose too many people just chose to sort of take the piss out of that moment, which, if you're kind of watching it in context, is actually quite a terrifying moment, seeing someone losing their fucking mind. And it probably killed her career as an actress. The whole thing did. She would always be the Blair Witch girl. It's like you peak on your first film. So I kind of feel sorry for actors when that happens. Leslie Nielsen always got known for having to play the kind of goofy comedy that he did, where he was, a pretty solid actor, really. Even for dramatic roles and things like that, but he was always known for the kind of airplane type shtick. I mean, funny enough, when we were watching the Star Wars thing, it's like my brother's like kind of like, you know, I kind of feel sorry for Daisy Ridley, because, you know, this is probably the last thing she's likely to really make, you know, of any note. And it's quite right. Her big break really is probably the only thing anybody will ever remember her for in terms of, you know, movie making. I hope that's not the case. I hope it works out better. So I don't think she deserves to have her career ruined by a poorly handled film series. Goosed by a corpse. Daisy Ridley is charismatic and pretty. Yeah. Yeah, I've always said, despite all the things I hate about the way the Star Wars series and all the things I don't like about the character, I've always found her to be a fairly charming sort of presence on the screen. There's moments where she's quite endearing, but you know, you get a crappy bit of writing and crappy directing. What are you gonna do? But big studios particularly, and a lot of directors don't really care about the reputations of their actors going forward so much. It's particularly a problem with child actors. You look at how many child actors have had their lives ruined by the movies that are in. Jake Lloyd from the prequels, as a for instance. It's never Moida. A great soundtrack. I don't suppose you can, but I wonder if you can get the soundtrack to this. Leslie Nielsen was in Forbidden Planet. Yes, he was. That blade. I think I said it was a machete on the review, and that's not right. I think it's a bill hook or something like that. You see all those elements of the film, and it's why one of the things I really love about this film is the VHS cover. It's just got elements from throughout the film. There's a lot of things within this film that are just very identifiable with it, whether the squid and the blade and all that kind of stuff. Hello, Richard. How far are we in the film? Currently 34-32. Like I say, this whole section with the younger kids always feels a little bit kind of superfluous to the rest of the film. It's almost, because it isn't a long film, this really. It's like, say, 84 minutes. It's not a long film, so it feels like it's been padded out by that. Like they couldn't quite figure out how to make the, shall we say, the local drama kind of figure out a bit more. I could be wrong about that. It could be entirely intentional, but it is entertaining still. Hmm. Oh man. And you just know Tom Savini must have watched this for that effect. Oh, it's such a cool effect. And that sound effect, that kind of ding, that sting, is very much kind of, you know, it accompanies a lot of stuff in films like The Burning and Friday the 13th. Yeah, ouch is a definite ouch. That death was recreated in Friday the 13th, yeah. A lot of this section was, I mean, Friday the 13th really is the only thing that's really similar between Friday the 13th and this is this whole kind of killing of the younger group, really. And surprise, surprise, it's the more vacuous part of it, but it's, like I say, it's fun. It's fun enough. I don't. It doesn't all have to be completely, like, you know, integral. But if you were to lose a lot of this is why I think it's kind of vacuous. Is if you lost a lot of this section, it wouldn't make that much difference to the film, just other than just to make it shorter. The main concern of the film is always that kind of internal community sort of stuff that's going on, and this is almost tangential to that. Yeah, another one. Ah, dear. Penetrative sex can be dangerous. Good to see you back, Lance. Ah, I know. I was just entirely up for a double bill tonight for some reason. It is another one of those films that really does make the most of the locations out there that they had. And it's so important. I think Jess Franco does that a lot, making use of areas that he knows, that he likes, that he's familiar with, or just that is around. For all the amount I take the piss out of some of his films, like the cannibal films, when they're clearly filmed in like kind of Portugal or Spain. He was making the most of what he had around him, but there's also that. But then you get the things like some of the women in prison films where he has those kind of like wonderful old forts that he would film around. European filmmakers had such a wonderful kind of amount of places that they could actually film. And British filmmaking didn't do it as much, I don't think. Well, at least not as effectively, I don't think, because Britain's got some beautiful, beautiful places that it could be filming in, and so often didn't. When you look at something like Zardos, for instance, which was filmed in Ireland, that John Borman really does make use of that. Ken Loach would tend to kind of focus on the sort of more industrial end of things, but it's all part of that. It's grim up north kind of thing. Killam spend his time clanging and banging in the gym, as I imagine he needs some strength for that. Yeah. It's amazing how squishy victims in films like this are. I I'm gonna be watching. I'm gonna be watching this one again sometime soon. I've really got to get a better copy. It's been a long time since I've seen that. That's another film which is very hard to get hold of. And seems to be on the foreign versions of it. It's not, not the end of the world or nothing, but Roland filmed in some great locations. Yeah, a lot of those guys did. They were just very aware of places that they could film that were, within budgetary distance, shall we say. Awkward bit of lighting on that scene. The shadow of the rear view on her face. Zardoz, the film with... Yes, that is the one. Zardoz, I think, is a great film. It's a film that's eccentric, and people really kind of keyed in on the eccentricity of the film. Probably too much. It's not to say it's a perfect film, but it is. It's an interesting film. I think it is a genuinely interesting film, and quite beautiful as well. In all its eccentricity. Oh, Severin's going to be releasing GBH, really? Oh, that's amazing. I wish they would do that with a couple of Twemlow's other movies as well. Twemlow for me was kind of like, the epitome of British small-scale, independent, low-budget movie making. Yeah, and a great example of the liberation that the digital filmmaking would actually sort of afford them, or video form filmmaking. Showed Lexi it a few weeks ago, and she loved it. What GBH or Crystal Plumage? Crystal bird with plumage, whatever. Bird with crystal. You can tell I've not talked to anyone today. A few good films on the playlist this on YouTube. Yeah, I'd bumped into because I should apologise. Facebook has been messing around just recently, so I put up a question about what we were going to watch tonight. And for whatever reason, comments weren't posting and stuff like that. So not quite sure what was going on. But for whatever reason, it kicked up an old conversation stream I was having, and immediately there was a playlist, which is what this stuff was on. They're releasing another Twemlow film as well. Oh, excellent. Bird with crystal plumage. Good. I mean, that's sort of... This is like... now you've got this whole kind of idea of, there's people... wanted to do different things with the bay. You've got the kind of environmentalist, you've got the kind of guy who works the land, you've got the people who are kind of like wanted to exploit it for money and all that kind of stuff. They have really, really good kind of motivations, and each of the characters are very distinct. Outside of their group of young people, they've got real depth to the characters, and it is one of those things. That's why I say the deaths of the young people, although as fun as it is so almost expendable within this, because you don't really get to know them. GBH is the only, it's taken from VHS sources. It's the only way the film exists. Yeah, well, I mean, it was how it was filmed, isn't it? So, although these days you can digitally handle it a lot. Upscale it and present it a little bit better. But it is what it is, you know. It's a VHS sourced film. It should never feel, you know, like it was shot on 32mm or something like that. Glenn, do you think we could watch a Mondo film one week called Farewell Uncle Tom? It looks hilariously trashy. Goodbye Uncle Tom, or Adio Zio Tom, as it was originally called, is not hilarious. I wouldn't say it was. I think it has a few moments of humour, but it's not a pleasant film. But I don't mind watching it if other people don't mind watching it. Richard says, I like GBH, it was fun. It's a great film. Great film. I really enjoyed it. A little bit of homoeroticism in the film as well, with the relationship between the two guys. They're doing their frolicking through the park kind of thing. Which is amazing, really, because I mean, Cliff Twemlow in particular is a very, very manly man. He is the man, the Mancunian man, after all. It's this thing that's going on in there, which is this very, almost overtly homoerotic kind of thing going on. It seems weird when you think about it, but it's kind of fun. Zem says, Goodbye Uncle Tom is a shocker. It's well made and not trashy. It's one of the it's one of the Mondo films that because of the Jacopetti films, you know, they were all a bit Prosperi Jacopetti films. As much as there's that divide between the reality and the recreated, the seriousness and irreverence is also kind of an element of it. They're very multi-personality films, all of them, to a great extent. Goodbye Uncle Tom has some very disturbing stuff goes on in it as well. And not only just thinking about kind of like what its subject matter is, how it handles it, and even some of the attitudes within the film can stray into some very uncomfortable areas. I've got no doubt there are moments in that film which are kind of hilarious, but when you look at it in its entirety, it's a different matter to a degree. I mean, yeah, by all means, we can certainly watch it. It'll be an interesting one to discuss. Always on the red phone. That's the important phone. He's about to launch a nuclear attack. Is Farewell Uncle Tom like Blazing Saddles? Not quite. Though it does have moments of inappropriateness enough. It's a very iconic scene. It's the one off the cover which looks really kind of creepy and nasty. But now I have got Goodbye Uncle Tom going through my head to the tune of Candle in the Wind. Okay. Found in the Mouth of Madness and Dead Alive on YouTube. Okay. Yes. She'll have to do them at some point. Clearly can't eat that one now. It's been chowing down on Corpse's face, can we? In the Mouth of Madness is a kind of an interesting film. It's a very flawed film, but it has some interesting ideas going on. Mr. Ventura. I just went, when I opened the door, Jesse Ventura's there. Being a sexual tyrannosaurus, just like me. Gonna spew, gonna spew. She just stumbled into the dead tourist storage facility. God, so you start the day by seeing one dead body, and then before the end of it, that's all you're seeing is dead bodies, dead bodies, dead bodies, dead bodies. They're littering the place like fucking Coke cans. Oh. Those loafers won't take much abuse. You gotta really kind of kick that door, break his foot. Good news. This is the bloodbath. Found they live as well. Oh, excellent. Right back. By all means, yes. Send me the link. After the stream. There's no mad rush. It's not like going to be watching it right now, is it? I love They Live. So I was talking with Barry at one point, because of looking at different political kind of aspects of horror films, and him being more right-leaning and me being more left-leaning, sort of how we approach the various films. And the ultimate culmination of that conversation was really when I did the comparison between Death Wish and Falling Down, as for instance, one being a very right-wing film, the other being a left-wing film. in the less extreme version, and most people sort of understand those terms these days, but nonetheless kind of left-leaning, right-leaning. The Death Wish being a very right-leaning one because of the sort of kind of gun culture kind of aspects, revenge and all that kind of stuff, and falling down being kind of like the almost the antithesis of that kind of thing, of what goes wrong when you have that kind of culture. Could you be friends with someone on the right? Yes, you can. Not everybody's completely insane. And sometimes it is just a difference in certain approaches to various matters. But between me and them, we always had very civil conversations and very friendly and enjoyable conversations about that kind of stuff. Basically, because we were good friends, and we weren't going psycho at each other or taking each other at with the deepest of suspicions. And that's always the biggest part of the problem with bridging any political conversation, is getting past the expectation of the worst from people. As much as I would hate to be kind of like thought of as being a horrible person because of my left-leaning ideas or thoughts or philosophies, I also kind of like wouldn't want to do that to someone unnecessarily. And don't forget, I mean, these days it's very polarised, the conversation, it's very emotive, and we tend to be kind of using examples of the worst examples of each side. So, yeah. Yeah, there has been a certain psychosis on the right, it has to be said. It's kind of frightening to some degree. But we shouldn't go too far down that line. Let's keep it happy. Where else would you store dead tourists? Yes. They're just knocking each other off left, right and centre, aren't they? Not politically speaking, obviously, but... Let's keep it happy with blood, guts and gore, you're goddamn right. It's the bongos of doom. A few good films on the playlist. This is on Glenn. Maybe some future streams. Yes. Last House on the Left is 70 minutes long. Lots of cuts there, yeah. It's always the risk, isn't it? We don't want the cut version of that. Cool, that head came off easy. That's a neat cut. Well, in many ways. They're all bastards in this film. It's always an interesting dynamic, isn't it, when they do this? It can be very crass. I think it's the whole kind of Eli Roth sort of Rob Zombie kind of problem, where characters are often kind of like set up as everyone's a bastard, everybody sort of deserves what's going on, and I always kind of feel that's because the director wants to make it less, make it more of a guilt-free kind of process, and it's rarely comes off as interesting. But in this film, it's just because every one of these characters got like kind of qualities to them. They got very, very kind of ramped up to 11 kind of motivation to what they're doing, but there's motivation and clear characterization. They're not just sort of running around going, fuck the world, kind of fuck everybody, kind of thing, which is, yeah. Decapitation. Yeah. I was very tempted to do Day of the Dead earlier on. That's on that list, I think. Great film. Day of the Dead was the first of the... Was it the first or was it the second? I think I saw Night of the Living Dead first. Then Day of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead didn't come out until much later because of the censorship. But I remember in the 80s seeing Day of the Dead on VHS kind of sat in the video store. I always wondered where the cover for that came from, because it's like a wall of zombie heads, and it's not in the film. And I always wondered if that was a cut scene or if that was just a promo shot or something like that. Lords of Salem was the only zombie film where everyone isn't a twat. It's actually the one I kind of had the most respect for. I will always say, like, Rob Zombie, although I think he's not a terribly good writer, but he's not a very good writer at all, generally speaking. He has a interesting visual style. I wish I could find somebody that would work with him to kind of rein in his coarser tendency, shall we say. Dawn of the Dead was my first. I remember seeing the trailer for years on my VHS of House. Yeah, and I loved it when I got the fullest version that you could get of Day of the Dead. It was funny when I found out that my friend Malco, he was one of the guys that was responsible for the more hours cut of Dawn of the Dead. Because Dawn of the Dead got really bad kind of treatment in Germany. And him, I think it was a couple of friends put together they gathered together and put together the longest cut that you could make of it. It's a little awkward. It's a little bit kind of like clunky in some places how it's put together, but it's because the various materials didn't all match up. But it's kind of fun to see everything that's available more or less put into the film. Zombie heads were behind the scenes photo of all the zombie masks hung up on the shelf. Thank you. I figured that might be the case, but I've never found any kind of like confirmation of that. He's an angry character, isn't he? Don't you filthy no good whore. Oh, he'll never get the bloodstains out of that grey satin discussion. No, he won't. But this is one of those times where everybody being a bastard it works just really, really well. I like the Tom Savini remake of Night of the Living Dead. I haven't watched it in the longest time. I've always preferred the original. Tom Savini's version always felt a little superfluous to me, but it's well made. You wouldn't want to argue with someone like him holding a machete, would you? No, he's a very threatening character. All the time. But it is one of those things, it's like, that's his aspect. He's not devious, he's just brutish, you know. It's a bill hook, from what I understand, Kerry. I think that's what it's called. The acting in Savini version is a bit more professional. Yeah, I think that's fair enough to say. It is kind of highlighted in the riff tracks, isn't it? Somewhat. I'm Helen Cooper. I've frozen? What? No. No, I'm still running. I was going to do the freezing trick, but all the lights are doing stuff. If it's frozen, then you need to just refresh your browser. Probably. It seems to be running okay on my end. And I'm watching it from monitor. I'm watching it from the stream, and I've got it on the studio over here. And I've got my films over here. That's why I need 3 screens. One day, I will pay for 3 screens the same. 23 27-inch screens. So at the moment, I've got 3 different models, which is a little... It's not great. But I like this curved screen. It's really nice. At some time, I would like to do a breakdown of this film in terms of kind of like the various characters and their motivations, and yeah, how they all interact. Anyone heard any decent new films coming out? This Scorsese film looks good. coming out in October. It's 3.5 hours long. Wow, okay. To be honest, I haven't been keeping an eye on that because I haven't been going to the cinema. I have zero drive to go to the cinema, and at the moment, we're going to be lucky if there's any bloody cinemas left by the time I actually get the motivation to go again. Cineworld's gone into administration. I think it was Empire have gone into administration. So that's two major multiplex chains have gone under. So how did he not see that coming? He gets it together again very quick, considering he's just had a pot of boiling water thrown in his face. Speaking of cinema, the one in Liverpool is huge. Never seen a cinema as big. I don't know if it's entirely the case. I think there'll still be a space for kind of specialist cinemas. I think, the multiplexes are dying because the kind of films they put on in them now are becoming less and less interesting. The business model is not working anymore. Whereas if you've got kind of smaller, more specialist cinemas, I think you have much more chance to curate films. The question is whether companies like Disney will allow them to continue. There's plenty of cases that Disney are, going back to them, are withholding films from doing the circuits. Which is exactly why I think my opinion on copyright and how long it should last should absolutely be the case. There's so many films that companies like Disney should not be allowed to control anymore. I think, 25 years, that's it. After that, it's in the public domain. No questions, no arguments. Longest I would say is the lifetime of the director. But that could have an impact of its own right, because the director doesn't necessarily own the film, for one thing. It's all corporations and stuff, and now they go, well, the corporation is the person, and especially with American legislation, the corporations are people. To the point that, corporations are not just influencing politics with money, they are pushing to get votes. Actual votes. It's fucking ridiculous. Modern films are interested in pushing woke rubbish. I'm a bit cautious about using the word woke. I think it's an overused word. It's meaningless these days. It tends to be a word that's used just to dismiss an awful lot of stuff. Are there problems with certain political kind of drives behind films or compromises that are made? Yes, there can be, but yeah. Yeah, Oppenheimer does sound like it'll be an interesting film. But the cinema going experience for me has been sort of killed by multiplex experience, to be honest with you. the idea of going into a cinema, paying as much money as you do, and the cinema gets very little of it, but there's next to no staffing, there's no ushers to kind of ensure that the audience is behaving apart from anything else. And we're seeing so much of this sort of crossover even into theatre, where the audiences are just becoming so badly behaved that, you know, shows are being stopped. You don't get that luxury in the cinema. They just basically, they take your money, you take your chances, and that's not enjoyable. The music is out of place. Sometimes there's a contrast in the music between the vibe of the music and the scene. You get that kind of... often it's a deliberate thing. Another devious swine. I mean, it's a lot of films, I would say, that you could apply the term woke, I guess, to even in the video nasties list. And I've written about it, and I've been bitched at quite legitimately, quite fully, in comments and stuff like that when I mention certain things. I think there's a difference between what shall we say, special interests within films and the dialogue and the narrative that's going on. There is a difference between kind of that being woke and what a corporation like Disney do, which tends to be very much very surface level, very kind of it's lip service that's being paid to that kind of stuff, and that's the sort of stuff that tends to get kind of labelled as such. But I wish people would stop using that word, because it's passé. It's lazy, to be honest with you, in my opinion. I mean, just getting people to describe what they mean by that word is kind of illustrative of how little it actually means. Still miss the old canon cinema I grew up with, yeah. Melton Mowbray, where I kind of spent most of my life growing up, has a wonderful little theatre in there. Art Deco frontage and all that kind of stuff. I remember many, many happy memories of going to see films there. It's a one-screen thing. Lovely little theatre. It's a lot different these days from my understanding. I'd love to go see a film now. Get the feeling this guy isn't trustworthy. Literally describes every character in this fucking movie. Kinema in the woods at Woodhall Spa, Lincolnshire. Lovely, quaint little cinema. My brother and I went to this very odd little theatre cinema up in it's kind of a bit out of York. Went up to see my girlfriend at the time. We went and watched Man of Steel there. Not a great movie. Lovely little cinema though, very friendly. It was clearly a single screen at one point that got split down the middle to make two. Entertainingly small little space. I grew up in a pie. Melton Mowbray. Yeah, it's a pork pie. Pork pies come from there. It isn't made of pork pie. Used to smell of pork pie or something kind of similar anyway, because it did have a bit of a funk for it from years and years of having a Mars factory there. There was a constant meaty smell in the air. ABC with a pub attached, that's nice. It's Moira. It's very entertaining. This was like just literally everybody's killing each other. It's like there's no victims. It's just murderers who get murdered. I've always loved this ending. Everybody die. Self-made orphans. La 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 la. La 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 la. Oh dear, yes. So all the way through this movie, they've been stabbing, slashing, and hacking and hanging each other, and somebody had a shotgun. Could have made it a very short movie. My idea for the title of a novel, Giallo, look out, he's a wrong one. Sha-la-la-la. It's very 70s, isn't it? That music could almost be straight out of a Jess Franco film. It's a prelude to a sex scene. Yes, that is an ending, all right. God, I love that movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, so it was quite I was just very excited to sort of go through that again. Hopefully my brother enjoyed that. I think he's seen it before, but not 100% sure. Definitely an iconic one, and so much of that is like like we say, carried through the splatter sort of genre, the slasher genre. Although mostly kind of isolated to that kind of like the teens bit is what most of the American films kind of took and ran with, but without all the sort of subdiffusion, backstabbing, literal backstabbing in some respects of the rest of the world of the characters. It'd be interesting to see a film that sort of elaborates on, or at least concentrates much more on the intrigue, because it does take that huge section with the young folks, and then they're all killed off, and they have very, very little to do with the rest of the film. In fact, nothing really to do with the rest of the film. But there you go. Simon needs a cuppa. Go get a cuppa, sir. In fact, take your time. Go for a piss break. Get your beer. Get your vodka. Get your isopropyl alcohol. Whatever is your poison. Don't drink isopropyl alcohol. Not good. Not good for you at all. Mother of a hangover, believe me. But then we'll get started with the next film in just a few minutes' time, which will be Blood Feast, which is definitely one of the goofier films. And it's one of those films, I think, that you, when you see it, you sort of go, how the hell did this end up on any list? But you can kind of understand it as well. You can understand why people kind of like went freaked the fuck out about this film, because it is gory as fuck, but it's also cheesy as fuck. But we will be enjoying that in just a few minutes. Now, for a sensitive depiction of Egyptian culture and cooking, yes. Definitely not culturally sensitive. Oh, God. Yeah, and heavily emulated film as well. Oh, apparently the stream's current bitrate is higher than the recommended whatever. Surely that's good. They'll have more bits. More bits that have all the bits. Absolutely every one of the bits. Not quite sure what I'm supposed to do with that information, but there you go. Oh dear, but yeah, Northern Giallo, look out, he's a wrong'un. I'm trying to think of what I would call some of Northern Giallo. Probably have something to do with black puddings. Oh dear. Right. Let's just take a couple of moments out. I will just put everything on pause for the time being. Go get yourself a drink and all that kind of stuff. Let's give Simon a quick chance to get his cuppa, and then we will be right back, and I will restart the stream. Well, I'm not going to end the stream, but I'm just going to pause. We will see you back in just a couple of moments. Bye-bye. There we go. Actually, put the mic on might help. Hope that was enough time for you to have a quick break. We won't start for a couple more minutes yet. So, Simon, let me know when you're ready, because I know how important it is to take your time to let your tea steep and brew. How about Ecky Thump? Ecky Thump, he was a rat bastard, weren't he? I'm going to be thinking about that all night now. It's kind of like what would be a good title for a Giallo, because that was one of the things, wasn't it, with Giallo? They tend to have very, very involved names. The bird with the crystal plumage, death laid an egg. Which is really kind of like that. It's one I've got up here. It's up there somewhere. Yeah, I'm not going to find it in there. Shut. Waste too much time looking at it. Death laid an egg, yeah. Which is another Giallo, but and it's it's very kind of literal, and it is kind of funny when you get those direct translations. It happens an awful lot with like Japanese type films as well, where you get these kind of like really involved sort of names. It's kind of funny. Okay, you're ready. Fantastic. There is a Giallo generator, really? Okay. I'm going to have to look for that. So get yourself sort of hooked up with Blood Feast, and in a couple of minutes we'll get started. Yorkshire. Yeah, Yorkshire Giallo. He bagum. Ah, no. You're murdered. Only gone and done him in, ain't he? Don't go in mid-terrace. Oh, you're ready. Okay, everybody seems to be kind of ready. Fantastic. Okay, we'll start on, we'll count to 5 and go on go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Blood Feast. There's something about these, this kind of tier of movies, in terms of sort of budgets and all that kind of stuff, with the very, very sort of kind of closed in, static sort of camera work. Everything about it feels just ever so slightly awkward. Foreshadowing. Apologies for the burnt in subtitles. I didn't realise those were on this one. But there you go. We can live with that. Get them off. See, that had passed for serious skin back in those days. So there's something about the kind of colour qualities of these. It's slightly washed out, often leaning slightly to the green kind of tinge to the colour. Yeah, only gone and done her in, isn't he? Who's playing that kettle drum? Yeah. It's not relaxing when you're having a bath, is it? So that talcum powder in his hair. Best horror names generally. Blue Eyes of Broken Doll, which and I love the video cover to that. I did get that because it was one of those that I'd wandered about for a long time. I'd seen an image of it because it had the kind of claw thing that the gardening thing that's used as a weapon in the film, and it was part of the book Splatter Movies. So one of the images on the front cover. When I found out what it was, I ended up getting it on VHS. Pants. Men Behind the Sun is not a... yeah. His missus got the talc all over himself, yeah. He never gets rid of it by the before the end of the movie. But yeah, there's a visual quality to these films. A lot of these films from this time, they're so incredibly low budget that the sets almost feel like they'll get knocked over if somebody sneezes on set. But it's the colour timing is always so very weird. It is like a recolor. You know, when you get those colorized movies, it's very much like that. Music is slightly jarring, methinks, yeah. Well, Herschel Gordon Lewis was so cheap he did it himself. I think there will be a lot of bloodshed here. Oh, God. She's in the bathroom and left her head and shoulders. Oh, God. See, this is clearly one of the movies that somebody just saw a few stills from it and went, we can't countenance that, you know, we can't have that. It was either that or it was some sort of reputational thing. Because even back in the 80s, it's like, you know, who thought this film was so offensively dangerous, so offensive and dangerous that it needed banning. You know, it's ridiculous. I really wish they wouldn't actually build the sets in a bathroom or something like that, because it does sound like it's been recorded in a bathroom. And you can always tell these sets are so patently fake. There is something about this, isn't there? It's just like you see these kind of sets and it's so obvious that it's just flats. It's like theatrical flats. Oh, that font. See, everything about it is so cartoonish, isn't it? That's the thing about it. It's everything feels better. The colour feels cartoonish. It feels like old comic books. The framing feels like it's from a comic book. The dialogue feels like it's from a comic book. It's kind of weird. Something exotic. Because the thing is, this film has been remade so many times. It's like, is it up there? Have I got it there? Did I get it down? An Egyptian feast? I do feel the need to put some talc in my hair. Blood Diner, where are you? There you are. So, essentially, that is much the same. It's pretty much the same story. The film that I'll be getting at the end of the month that I ordered months ago, but I never got it. They cancelled the order, which is Mardi Gras Massacre. There's so many versions of this film. Yeah, you gotta love this 60s obsession with hypnotism. You know, it's just this magical ability. I had the writer for this get in contact with me one time because if I remember rightly, the writer of Blood Diner was also the writer of Frozen Scream. And he was telling me about kind of like, what happened with that movie, because obviously Frozen Scream is a terrible movie, and I called it out for what it was. So he commented on the review. It's kind of funny. I can't possibly understand. I'm a woman. And remember, no murder. I stare at people like that in shops all the time as I leave Primark. You want skin tight leggings? I love the way that, because he's the bad guy, he's got to have a bit of a lope going on, hasn't he? We couldn't afford to pay another actor to be Igor. He's very talented. I'm looking forward to getting the Mardi Gras Massacre Blu-ray. Time check, we are on 9 minutes and 55 seconds. I'd love it if William Metso sort of just was kind of like he walks into the scene when William Metso's there with his mask and doing the same kind of thing. I think you may be in the wrong film. Exposition, people. I love that he's got a secret temple though, and it leads straight to the shop. It's not even go round the back through the office or nothing like that. No, legs cut off. Can't say this guy didn't make an effort. You remember when they gambled on Bullseye, you got increasing loud kettle drums, and if they lost the drums, just stop dead. That's a local reference for the local people. There's nothing for you here. Getting a few Mardi Gras Massacre vibes with the style. Yeah, well, Mardi Gras Massacre is just really a remake, essentially. A huge rip-off, if you want to be uncharitable. The only thing that's good really about Mardi Gras Massacre is William Metso in it. His performance is just off the scale. Honest to goodness, serial killer was once a contestant. Yes, I did hear. He didn't win the speedboat. Yes. So watch out, you might get head in the most horrific way possible. I'm not going to let anybody hurt you. I mean, we're in a movie. Why would you die if we try to have sex? That never happens. Oh, God. Oh, classic. Did he win a set of snake? Oh, God. I don't remember too much about the case for that one. I think there was, I don't know if it was Kixer or someone like that. Someone did a YouTube video on the guy. Well, when it comes to films about kind of serial killer types, or at least kind of like, criminal types, I think Black Panther was one of the really good ones. And no, not that Black Panther. Based on a real case in Britain. Don't know if it's up there somewhere. It's up there somewhere. Brains and snakes. See, that's some pretty graphic stuff for its time. And the Oscar goes to... She wanted to leave. She was scared, but I was just so horny I wouldn't let her leave, and now she's dead. Even Shatner would be like looking at this going, my God, the acting. Take this boy to the hospital. He's injured and he didn't get his end away. There might be a nice nurse there to take care of him, if you know what I mean. She gave him a piece of her mind. Tonight's Spanish lesson is brought to you by... Yes. Ooh, that'll narrow it down then, won't it? A sick mind, a pathological killer. That is your rate. That's your criminal profile. Get the bucket. Get the bucket. It's like the directorial notes where you've just got a speeding ticket and you're trying to bluff your way out of it. Go. It's the 60s. The hospital probably gave him a nice relaxing scotch and a cigar. Well, she... Tell me about your daughter. Well, she had a few less holes in her head before this happened. Oh, she wasn't going that steady. I always thought it was a very strange phrase, isn't it, going steady? Covens. Stop pressing the poor woman. She's clearly upset. Oh, I have to give the actress her due. She's going for it. She's actually the most convincing person in this entire thing. In 60s, expectant mothers were told to smoke extra because they were smoking for tea now. I do remember one of the things about the tobacco companies, because they were faced with the thing that if you smoke, a woman smokes during pregnancy, the babies on average were much smaller, and their thing was like, well, you know, some women would like to have smaller babies. Fuck. A little bit of oregano, bit of sage, little salt, pinch of pepper. Making real effort with that steering, isn't he? God, 1960s American cars were just fucking huge, weren't they? The size of these damn things, Jesus Christ. It's the captain and Tennille. They're about to die. The ominous music is great. But it is one of those things. It's like films like this, when they're put together, it's almost a one-man band in many respects. It's, you know, obviously there's a load of people involved with it, but everything's done in-house, so to speak, just to make it as cheap as possible. When Extro was made, and Harry Bromley Davenport did all the music for it and all that kind of stuff, because it was, you know, he's a musician. He could put it all together. Cheaper to do, easier to do for him. His commentary on his soundtrack to Extro is quite amusing, but hey, I quite enjoyed it. I do. I really have so much time for Extro. Such a great film. Extra films are a guilty pleasure of mine too. Getting some Swedish air hostess vibes going on. not Giallo, Mondo film I think called Sweden Heaven or Hell, which would be quite fun to watch. Most Mondos are very, very boring for the larger for most people. Are we just going with the tongue because that's the thing it tastes? And he goes, "Oh, we want flavour." So, what's associated with flavour? Oh, tongues. Just bite, girl, bite. Extra's great. Not seen any of the sequels. Are they good? They're different. Some interesting stuff goes on in them. Extra 2 with Jan Michael Vincent is it's something to see. Although it wasn't a very happy experience for everyone involved because Jan Michael Vincent was pretty much what he's known for. He was just barely capable of making movies at that point. He was one of those that, they had to sort of recite the lines to. Though he wasn't in his utter kind of state of decline that you saw him sort of later on in, but he was well on his way by that point. It's quite sad, really. Wish they would release Extra 2 on Blu-ray disc. Got the first and third films, just need the second now. Yeah, I never quite. Harry told me that he was working on Extra, the big one, but that's never seems to have seen the light of day, unfortunately. I was quite interested by the idea of what he was doing with that because he was going to be working with with a writer that did Life Among the Cannibals. At least at one point that was going to be the case, and that would have been interesting. If you want to see a good Harry Bromley Davenport movie, Life Among the Cannibals is it. It's so much fun. He holds Mockingbird Don't Sing as well up very high in his estimation, and it's an interesting film based on a very fascinating real life case of a girl who's basically isolated from being very, very young, essentially locked in a room and isolated from the world. She sort of found when she's about teenage and older anyway. Essentially a feral child in many respects. Extra 2 and 3 are on YouTube. I got Extra 2 on Blu-ray, not Blu-ray, on DVD somewhere. Exposition. You'll find with Extra 2 and 3, much like the first one, they tend to sort of focus on a certain kind of, or at least borrow from a certain area of film. Extra 2 is kind of like sort of sci-fi action, and Extra 3 is kind of like it's sci-fi again, but it's kind of like a different set of films, and more like Alien and things like that. Bit more like Predator and things like that, I think, actually, come to think of it. It's been a long time since I've seen it. Extra 3 was one of the ones that was very hard to get hold of at the time when I was trying to find it. You have all the Extra films on DVD, but quality is not the best. Yeah, Extra 3 was always hard to get on DVD in decent quality. It's probably the most involved set you'll see in this movie. Oh dear. Getting Manos vibes from this particular scene. Definitely got a melted crayon kind of feel to the blood. Comedy horror blood-sucking pharaohs in Pittsburgh goes a lot to this film. This is a lot, like I say, there's a lot of films that I've basically borrowed or outright ripped off this film. Reminds me of the cult scene from the Dragnet films, yes. I was going to say slightly less ridiculous, but it's not really, is it? You know. Said there are still followers of this particular kind of cult, and they may be in the audience. That trumpet was awesome. Who doesn't want a culture that's based on blood and lust? And if you're going to have to get rid of at least 50% of that, let's get rid of the blood, let's just have the lust. Make it a big fuckfest, essentially. Now she was a Playboy bunny, or Playmate, and they made a big deal about that in the advertising for this film. It's the way these shots are, these scenes are shot. You know, it's like kind of like it's always very. It's very stiff. There's very limited angles that they shoot from. Lots of very, very, very long takes. There's always zero artistry to the camera work. Oh, she gets frantic when I'm not getting home. She's not a great actress. Bless her. This guy's so square, he's not so cute. Well, sure as hell isn't a Rubik's Cube. He's really not that complex. Really, bloodlust to me is a missed marketing opportunity, a perfect name for a brand of setbacks. Oh, God. Yeah. Picture so dreamy. Don't ask me to get my tits out, because that's what I do for my day job. Oops, that's not in this movie world. That's a hell of a line. Talk about damning with faint praise. This is the most pleasant evening I've had since that first murder. Oh. Is that a truncheon in your pocket, or are you just pleased to see me? You have to remember, films like this were just cheap trash intended for drive-in movies. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, yeah, you're quite right to point out, because this is pure exploitation. Nothing more, nothing less. It is, particularly when you look at a lot of the films, specifically from the 50s and the 60s, and films like this were kind of like almost an antidote to like the Hays Code and stuff like that, because people, weren't generally encouraged to go see films like this. Most of the films that went out were heavily cut and censored and went through all sorts of kind of guidelines and kind of stuff like that. So films like this were almost a kind of reactionary thing to them, to the Hays Code. And they weren't intended to be kind of masterpiece works of art. So they were intended to appeal to the basest instincts and the kind of like morbid curiosity of people. Which is, why they got such a hard time from kind of various pressure groups and all that kind of stuff, because there's not a lot in these films to really sort of defend them as a work of art or anything like that, but they were intended to be kind of a bit of a roller coaster ride. But unintentionally, they also become a piece of counterculture. It's like the start of the thriller video. Yeah. Careful, ma'am, he's looking to take diabolical liberties with your knees. Yes. Yeah. It's it's one of those oddities of America, especially kind of like, when you're talking about 50s and 60s kind of mainstream cinema and all that kind of stuff. And even films like this, sex is one of those things that is was not very easy to sell in America. Which is why it's sort of remarkable. And it's also kind of one of the reasons why things like Playboy and stuff like that would exist, is because they were sort of this counterculture kind of thing that sort of stood in contrast to the mainstream. But because of the way that all that sort of stuff is regarded in general, when you see the stuff which is by the standards of the time fairly racy, it's comparatively tame by today's standards and somewhat coy, to say the least. There's only about 300 drive-ins left in the whole of America. There used to be more than 4,000 in the late 50s. Yeah. Drive-ins are always a bit of a weird thing, in my opinion. But, I mean, the multiplex kind of sort of killed a lot of that stuff off. But, yeah. They occasionally do, like, outdoor screenings and stuff here in Cambridge. Which I've been meaning to go to one at some point. Can you imagine if we got them to show this, though? Kind of fun. So that's some medical science for you, isn't it? Just sort of shoving your head on their chest to see if she's actually kind of like heart's going. Están muerta. Television video and finally multiplex cinemas are what killed the drive-ins off, yeah. I think multiplex cinemas ended up being kind of the death of cinema in general. I think it was an inevitable decline from that point. When you industrialize an art form in that kind of way, and then you let the studio sort of dictate what gets shown in there, so much they had so much power over those businesses. The smaller films, the more interesting films, all got squeezed out for the sake of the multi-billion bloody dollar films. If only she'd been wired up to the machine that goes pings. Nice Monty Python reference. I'm a busy man who's got to run a shop and kill people and serve a god. Why do they keep sending me these bills? That mainstream cinema has the feel of you take the slop and we give you and say thank you. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I see. Muchas gracias. I do have the feeling that I really wish I could read Spanish, yeah, well enough and fast enough. I'd just put on a really cheesy kind of Spanish voice and just read their subtitles. The hair is almost Simpsons blue. Yeah, it is one of the comical things with this film. His hair changes sort of shade because the amount of talc changes from one scene to the next. Oh, skin fleck. Anyone else is nostalgic about how thick that phone book is? Yes. You know, I was looking at that going, oh my god, I wonder how many people who are watching this actually remember phone books. You can imagine literally within about the next 10, 15 years, there's going to be very few people who sort of look at this and will go, what book is he reading? Why is he reading a book? So the amount of times people kind of go, well, you know, like if it's a film from like 1970s, there's somebody running away from a murder. Like, why don't they call the cops? It's like, how the fuck are they supposed to? Go, whoa, what about their mobile phones? Like, yeah, directors these days take it to social media and blasting their core audiences whenever they make a bad film no one watches, rather than admitting that it's their fault. The biggest part of the problem with mainstream cinema these days is they're spending too much money on the movies. It's like literally one of the number one problems. Because even if it's a good film, even if millions of people go to watch it, they don't make enough money. They can't make enough money. And it's ridiculous. If you're going to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on a movie, and you have to make like $1 billion or $2 back to make it break even, then you should probably be making cheaper movies. It's ridiculous the kind of money that they spend on most films. But they have this attitude that you just throw, and historically it was true, but I don't think it's as true anymore. The more money that you throw at a movie, it was supposed to make more money. Because it should look better, sound better, be acted better, be directed, and just produced better, all that kind of stuff, and have better marketing. But I don't think that's nearly as true these days. We have social media and all these kind of things which can offset a lot of... Oh... It's very antisocial, isn't it? It's a lot of social media kind of campaigns that you can have to produce, to market your movie and all that kind of stuff, which should be utilised much more wisely, in my opinion. But don't spend billions upon billions upon billions. Think about ways that you can actually make the movie a good movie, but cheaper. Rather than just going, right, we're going to spend billions upon billions on CG and all that kind of stuff, and actors that are being paid 14 million or 40 million or whatever. Ridley Scott complaining no one goes to his film because young folk are on their iPhones and space operas. Space operas? Is that a thing again? I know David Lynch was complaining about films being watched on iPhones and stuff. I tend to agree. The idea of watching something on a screen that size is it's kind of a little bit ridiculous. But that's a photo I took, by the way. Don't know if that'll show up. iPhones and space operas, a few generations in that gap. Yes, there is. I think even when I was the right age to be kind of like playing around with a space hopper, I found them pretty wretched things at the time. Clobber, a broad daylight attack there, yeah. Isn't that a really bad film with Dustin Hoffman? I don't know. This statue seems to be appearing more increasingly surprised as the film goes along. Probably looking at him going, really, you're going along with this, dude? Seriously, it was a joke. No, it's a terrible film. Trying to source a Sinclair C5 now that the 80s are back in fashion, but they seem like death traps. Most of them are falling to pieces these days. I don't think the plastic was designed to last. Stop your screaming or I'll whip you. Almost looks like the Black Lodge there. It's the lightly comical version of the Black Lodge. There's just days when whipping a girl that's chained to the wall just isn't, satisfying for the soul. I remember when the C5, it's still going Ishtar, 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 Ishtar. C5. I remember when it came out, and I always wanted one. When it first came out, I was like, kind of, that's so fucking cool. But they ended up having to add a flag at the back of it because it was so low down. It's essentially a recumbent trike. So when you sat down on it, you're literally, you're about 3 foot high. And riding on the road at slow speed, and even in a car, it was easy to lose track of where people were. Yeah, Ishtar. Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty. This is where David Cronenberg got the influence of Videodrome. So, chick thigh? You mean chicken thigh? No, chick thigh. Oh, cooked to perfection. Not at all a charcoal briquette. Fucking well done, mate. I'm sure Delia Smith would have had a better recipe than the one this fucker's coming up with. I mean, seriously, if this guy did your Sunday dinner, oh my god. It's like bloody Yorkshire puddings made of pure carbon. Then he discovers the client is a vegetarian. Well, put it this way, most of the characters in there are this stupid that you could call them vegetables, so you might be able to scrape by. Vamos. Well, they found a secret entrance really quick, didn't they? There was almost no struggle. Yeah, search a room, then switch the light on. Oh my god. My god, this must have been a hell of a party. Half expecting the soundtrack to morph into the baby elephant walk. Oh, why not? Oh, goody beer! Oh my god. This place is so well laid out for like kind of fresh beers and stuff like that. It's proper little YouTubing den, isn't it? Forward, Ramsey. Main characters over there. Secondary characters that aren't actually in the studio are over there. In a little group. We never saw them walk in. There was never any suggestion that there was anybody else here. When we walked in, there was just me and him. But the other three people, they're there. Now. Because the script demands it. Call the health inspector. Yeah. Health inspector comes in and goes, my god, somebody could get killed in this environment. Feast of Ishtar is about to begin. I hope you like to eat ass, because you are literally going to be eating ass. If you would like to inspect my spatula. I've been sitting on this recipe, and my ancestors have been sitting on this recipe just for this moment. It has called for pretty much cremated body parts. I've heard that excuse in plenty of restaurants. Thank you very much. Where's my dinner? Well, it hasn't been blessed yet, sir. What kind of Philistine are you? What kind of blasphemer must you be to expect your dinner to arrive within 3 hours before it's been blessed by kind of all sorts of naked priests? Why does he sound like Bela Lugosi? Why wouldn't he sound like Bela Lugosi? To make it more authentic to ancient Europe, ancient Egypt, you must now marry your uncle, who's also your father. It could, be any monarchy from Europe, really, couldn't it? As well. Is Heston Plymouth a fan of this film? There'd be a lot more dry ice if there was. Hang on, I'm getting porno vibes now. Well, she was a Playboy bunny, so. You wouldn't sacrifice me. Must sacrifice you on this ancient altar of Formica. The frustration in his voice is real. That's not acting. And she didn't. That's not actually in the script that she forgot the lines. She actually probably did forget the lines. I can't remember my lines. Come on, lie back, let me show you my chopper. Run, Ramses, run! Or kind of lope awkwardly into the distance. If only my evil lope wouldn't slow me down so much. Really shouldn't take these cops too long, really, to catch up with him. It's not so much a high-speed chase as a high-speed lope. He is the equivalent of Sally Hardesty. But it's been swapped around. The good guys are chasing. High-speed limp, yes. A gate would put verbal kit to shame, yeah. She became the second course. On the plus side, there was plenty of finger food for the party. But unfortunately, it was actual fingers. The girl's going for it. She's going for an Oscar. No. Just bound purposefully towards him, but very slow because you can't catch up with him. Oh dear. I love the fact that these people, these really, really posh people, live literally across the road from a landfill. So just throw away your one and only weapon. How are they so far away? Oh, I'm safe now. Nothing could possibly go wrong. My God, he's been trashed. Bit of a dump on a good day. What happened? Every time I pull away from the landfill, I push the button and the person dies. On the plus side, he is a multiple murderer. Hey, I've got to clean this out now. It's a very convenient little seminar I went to. I'm glad he's summing the entire movie up for us. It's like, because, wouldn't have got it otherwise. That dialogue, so much cheddar, yes. Thank you, Richard. And it's only Tuesday. So he's about to take a piss in it. I suppose I better back up and empty him out into the tip. The end. Oh God, it's so much fun, that film. This was on the video Nasties list. Like I said, it's a few bits of the reputation of the film, certainly at the time that the film came out. This was particularly gory, and even by today's standards, it's got its moments of being pretty gory. But how can you take it so seriously? It is just absolute cheese from start to finish, but gloriously so. And it's arguably one of the films that really kind of like started the splatter kind of craze. There's a lot of films that we kind of watched in the particularly late 70s and into the 80s. A lot of it was kind of inspired by this sort of stuff, and a lot of films which were literally kind of ripped this film off, like Mardi Gras Massacre in particular, which is so similar to this film in so many respects. But the end, question mark. Was there a Blood Feast 2? I can't remember if there was a Blood Feast 2. I think there was, wasn't there? Feast 2. Yeah, Blood Feast 2, All You Can Eat. Which is, again, Herschel Gordon Lewis. 2002. There you go. Both good shows in their own right, but I prefer Bay of Blood. Bay of Blood is definitely the better movie. Blood Feast is just it's just some entertaining kind of stuff. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, but that kind of style still kind of persists to this day. It's not gone away, but that kind of like sort of cheese, kind of over the top sort of sets, cheap looking sets. Not realistic in. It's probably a better kind of way of describing it. Just everything's very comic book kind of style. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Not leaving much to the imagination, but it delivered lots of red paint. Yes, it did. It was very hard for them to get kind of blood correct, and to some degree, it's arguable that they didn't want that. When you look at something like The Evil Dead, for instance, The Evil Dead very deliberately went out of its way to not have realistic blood. It was either like kind of jet black, or it was kind of green, or it's like sort of super kind of crayon red and that kind of stuff. Dawn of the Dead famously had Tom Savini described it as the blood looking sometimes like melting crayons and that kind of stuff. It could be very difficult, but the thing is, sometimes they didn't want that because the censors did not want to see realistic blood. And that's why Evil Dead had such a wide range of colours for the blood, because it was supposed to be unrealistic. It's fantasy. It's a weird kind of alternate sort of thing. It wasn't supposed to be disturbing, and so actually it was supposed to be just a bit gross. But yeah, got the H.G. Lewis Blu-ray box set from Arrow. It's trashy good fun. I would love that, actually. That's kind of cool. But I think it was super expensive at the time, wasn't it? H.G. Lewis box set. See how much it's gone. It's actually not a bad price now. It's 30 quid. It was a lot more at the time, I think. But which ones has it got? Blood Feast 2000 Maniacs, Colour Me Blood Red, Gruesome Twosome, She-Devils on Wheels, How to Make a Doll, This Stuff Will Kill You. That's kind of cool. And the Gore Girls, Wizard of Gore. That's pretty cool. I might get that at the end of the month. That would be kind of fun. I mean, they are kind of very much of their time, and I think even that H.G. Lewis's stuff spanned a certain period of time, and it didn't really sort of change. It was almost a look and a style and a feel that he kind of cultivated eventually. Certainly with the kind of like early 60s stuff, it was more of a that's what he could afford to do, really. But he kept going for such a long time, didn't he? It was like the Gore Girls, most of that box set is between what's it, 63 and 72. But there's like I say, Blood Feast 2, which is apparently 2002. Who knew? There you go. Howard Ramses III returns to Miami to reopen his grandfather's defunct catering company. Well, it had such a good reputation that we've got to build upon that legacy. So see if we can find a copy of that. That sounds very, very tongue-in-cheek. But to be honest, it's like even Blood Feast to a great extent. Although it had its moments of being going for the kind of shock value. It seems to always have a sense of humour about itself as well. Blood Feast 2, Blood Diner. So all kind of currently unavailable. I've got a copy for $10.99 there. I'll have to pick that up at some point. But that'll be fun. Anyway, Blood Feast 2 apparently stars John Waters. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Makes a lot of sense. Anyway, we will call it an evening there. Thank you for joining. Apologies again for the kind of Facebook debacle in terms of yes, it for whatever reason Facebook has not been working very well today. These things happen. It's a little bit out of our control, but I'm sure we can pick up some good stuff for the next stream. I'm not sure if it'll be next week or it'll be the week after. We'll have to see, but I will let you know as fast as I get to know. But for the time being, I shall say thank you for your company. I hope you enjoyed the selection of movies that I've made. I thought it was fun. Two wildly divergent films, one which is actually a really good film, and one which is just bad but a hell of a lot of fun. Don't let anybody ever tell you that a bad movie is a bad thing. You know, a bad movie is something that you shouldn't be able to enjoy. A bad movie can be great fun, and Blood Feast is a good example of that. It's a hell of a lot of fun to watch that very campy, weird, just strangely pitched movie. But yeah, you folks take care, and I'll see you on the next stream. And until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I'll see you in the Ramblaholics and all that kind of stuff. But until next time, I say good night, and thank you for your company. Good night.